presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, the only place where you can become a baller. You want to get them YSRPs, those Yahoo Sports rewards points. Sign up through us at awesemo.com. Click on the NFL tab. See the article right there at the top. The showdown for tonight's game between the Minnesota Vikings and Seattle Seahawks. Get in on that. Read the article by EMAC. He does a phenomenal job, and it's totally free. And also click that Yahoo link near the top. It'll take you there. Use the sign-up code AWESEMO when you do, AWESEMO, and and get your $30 in YSRPs. Good as cash to be used to play and win real money on the site. YSRPs, go over. Get them now. Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. And they got the 25K baller today, $200,000 NFL baller coming up this weekend. And if you look hard enough, there's some zero management fee contests where all the money paid in by the player gets paid back out to the player. That is our sponsor. That is Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Get them YSRPs. Become a baller today. Adam Scherer, how we doing, brother?
Doing good. Nice to get back to basketball after. I always enjoy Mondays because Sunday kind of gives me a break from NBA, so it's always nice getting back to it.
Well, you've got your wish. We got 6 games. I ask you this every time to start off the show. Initial takes for this slate. What stands out to you? What type of roster construction are we looking at?
Couple of huge pieces of news with Frank Ntilikina questionable and Jonas Valanciunas questionable. If Ntilikina's out, it becomes a lot easier to get the stars and scrubs type lineups, even though there's really only one true pay up guy on the slate in Giannis, but you also have, Trey Young, you have Joel Embiid, you have some guys in the 8 to 9K range. So if Ntilikina's out, you get a basically minimum priced Dennis Smith Jr. across the industry. If Valanciunas is out, we already know that Brandon Clark is out, so you would get a basically minimum priced Bruno Caboclo picking up additional minutes. So waiting on both of those pieces of news that I think will really shape roster construction.
Yeah, there's no question that's going to have a huge impact on today's slate. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. Hopefully we get some news during the show. If not, you got the Live Before Lock crew coming up after us to break everything down, particularly any news that breaks that's relevant heading into this 7 p.m. lock. Today on Live Before Lock, you've got Josh Engelman and Chris Spags taking you till 7 p.m. So stick around afterwards right here. Check out them hot beats. Those cool beats that Josh is throwing down during the commercial. No, for real though. Don't go anywhere. All right. So let's dive into it. Charlotte and Phoenix. Kind of an interesting game because neither team is particularly good, but there is some semblance of fantasy value to be had here on a 6-game slate. You have to make some exceptions. 224 total as well. Highest on this slate. 114 implied for the Suns. 109.8 for the Charlotte Hornets. 4.5-point spread. Let's start with the home team and the Hornets. Where are you at on guys like Devonte Graham, who even last game had a very solid outing despite seeing limited minutes in a monster blowout loss to the Milwaukee Bucks? He's a 25% usage guy, 30+% assist guy on the season. You have good rates from him, and he continues to be heavily involved despite playing alongside Terry Rozier. Backcourt thoughts here for the Charlotte Hornets.
I think that Graham's my favorite guy from Charlotte, but I still don't think I'm going to get to a ton of him because guard is a really, really deep position today. In the deep dive article, it was like I had to really limit myself to how many guards I could talk about. And then at forward and center, it was just like pulling teeth to find a couple guys to write about. So that will naturally keep my exposure down on any guard that isn't, like a minimum price Dennis Smith or something like that. But he does grade out Graham, that is, as the best option for me from Charlotte. It's a pace up spot for the Hornets. Phoenix ranks 10th in pace so far this year. They have been below average defensively. Graham's playing big minutes. Since joining the starting lineup, he's averaged 35 minutes per game, 25% usage rate, 31.7% assist percentage. So all that looks really good. It's just that I still have him as a secondary option compared to some other guards.
Okay. What about Terry Rozier? Any interest there?
Less in him, just because he's not really that much different in price than Graham is. So if I am going there, I would just rather get to Graham. And then again, there's just a million guards on the slate. Now
the wings here, there's not a lot to talk about. But before we get to center, and probably not much there either, I do want to ask you about PJ Washington, not because he's particularly good, but he's reasonably priced. But the big thing here is he has played back-to-back games with 33 plus minutes. Does that do anything for you on a 6-game slate, or is basically this whole Charlotte team outside of maybe some Graham off the map for you?
It makes him more interesting than he would be had were he still playing, 24, 25 minutes. But it's just still a really scary spot because, for one, like you said, he's not that great on a per
Right.
minute basis anyway. And we already have quotes from James Borrego a couple weeks ago talking about wanting to limit Washington's minutes to some extent. You've seen the minutes really fluctuate for him, so certainly not someone you can trust. He's the kind of guy where if you have a pretty chalky lineup, he works as a pivot in large field tournaments. But outside of that, it's not someone that I expect to be getting to a whole lot. Miles Bridges is kind of the same thing. You can get anywhere between like 30 and 34 minutes from Bridges. Not a great per minute producer. I have him projected for 0.9 fantasy points per minute here. So if he ends up in a couple of lineups for me, it's fine. But it's not someone that I expect to get lots of.
Now, what about the center position? We've seen it kind of in flux with Cody Zeller out and then returning, playing off the bench. Uh, given the status of everyone getting healthy here, it pretty much feels like a stay away spot for me.
Yeah, I don't really know what to make of it. In their last game, Zeller came back. Biombo still got the start in a blowout loss to Milwaukee. Biombo played 10 minutes. Zeller played 20. Um, Again, it was a blowout, so you got Hernan Gomez playing 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. But point just being that even though Biombo started, he didn't really play much. Zeller's minutes have been all over the place anyway. None of these guys are that cheap. Like you're looking at a $4,800 price tag on Zeller on DraftKings, which he obviously can. Like if Zeller plays 30 minutes somehow, he beats that price tag. But I have no idea how many minutes he plays. I have him at 24, so I'm not really getting there.
So basically, that's it for Charlotte, right? There's just not a lot here.
Yeah, it's just a team where it wouldn't be surprising if one of these guys has a good game, but there are a lot of good plays on the slate, and I don't see really appealing pricing on anyone on Charlotte.
Let's flip to the other side of this one. Phoenix Suns, 4.5 point favorites on the road. Devin Booker, Josh and I had a bit of a disagreement here today. Uh, the the production or lack thereof that he's seen alongside Ricky Rubio this year concerns me. I think Josh makes some fine points that he's still, good enough this season, and there's still upside here on a short slate. But what do you make of Devin Booker at 8,200 on DraftKings, $8,300 on FanDuel? Over on Yahoo, you've got him coming in at $34. Um, are you doing anything specifically with Devin Booker? And is he a priority play for you against the bad Charlotte defense that plays at a slow pace, but also just gives up points by the bunches?
Yeah, he's not a priority for me, but he is, I think, a good pivot in tournaments. He's a guy that you could use as a contrarian play where, like, for example, on DraftKings, he's basically the same price as Malcolm Brogdon. I do like Brogdon a lot more, and I'll have more Brogdon. But we have Brogdon at 22% projected ownership. We have Booker at like 13. So you're getting a little bit of a gap there. I think that it makes Booker kind of appealing as a differentiation play because it is such a favorable matchup against Charlotte. But I have a really hard time getting away from how much he's been hurt by playing alongside Booker or alongside Rubio this year. He's averaging about a fantasy point per minute when Rubio's on the floor. Overall this year, he's averaging 39.6 DraftKings points in 35.3 minutes, so like 1.12 points per minute. I have him for a little above that in this spot. But one other thing, a positive for Booker, is that in their last game, he did get backup point guard minutes in the second half. I don't know if that rotation will keep up or not, but it would make him a little more productive.
Yeah, it would. And uh, that's really the big concern I have is you're talking about someone this season that is averaging less than a fantasy point per minute with Ricky Rubio on the floor. And it's significant. It's really significant. You and I talked about this a lot last season too. Even when Isaiah Cannon was out there with him, like you saw his production come down a little bit because of some of the ball handling duties are moved over to Cannon. When he was responsible, when he was your starting point guard, like no questions asked, he was the starting point guard. It was really hard not to consider playing Booker every single night.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes a really big difference. He loses what he gains in actual real life efficiency playing alongside Rubio. He loses in DFS production because he's not out there just chucking up 30 shots and picking up a bunch of assists anymore.
So, is there any interest in the rest? I want to wait till we get to Baines, but First, strictly speaking about the backcourt and the wings, you've got guys like Rubio, and then Kelly Oubre, whose price is coming up. His production has been very solid, though. He's clearly developing into a really solid wing player, and you're getting some huge games from him. Also, to be fair, relatively low floor on this guy. There are some spots where you could explain it away pretty easily, some difficult matchups as well. But he's now $7,000 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's $6,800, which is a lot friendlier. And on Yahoo 28, also reasonably affordable. What are your thoughts on Oubre? And you can talk Rubio too.
Oubre's price tag's just come up to a point where it's kind of tough to trust him. The forward position is pretty weak today, as I mentioned. So that's one way that, or one reason you could get to Oubre. I just don't really love the salary at 7K. I'm on FanDuel. He's 6,800, so more reasonably priced there. You have to roster two small forwards. So I think he's a better FanDuel play than DraftKings play. As far as Rubio goes, same salary on DraftKings as Terry Rozier is. So he's one of the point guards that I would rather have than Rozier. I think that he's still a secondary option for me, but I do have him ahead of Rozier. I think it's a really good spot for Rubio, and he has been really productive this year.
Okay. Anyone else before we get to the center position here?
No, not before we get to center.
Okay. So the reason I wanted to kind of end on this one is because it's kind of important. First of all, Charlotte, just a miserable defense, poor rebounding team. I've mentioned many times points in the paint allowed is an issue, put back opportunities. Now, Aaron Baines, surprisingly, is getting up a lot of shots from 3-point range. And actually, I think like more than a third of his shots are coming from 3-point range. I think it's like 42%. Not a ton from around the basket, but still a favorable spot. He went from being probable, though, to questionable now with this calf injury. First of all, if he plays, what are you doing with Baines? Are you okay with him? Are you putting him at 26, 27, 28 minutes? And then if he doesn't play, how are we going to approach this pretty favorable spot for somebody?
So if he does play, I have him at 26 minutes. I have him as a secondary option, 5,400 on DraftKings. Decent price point, good matchup against the Charlotte front court. So if he plays, I think he's fine. He's not someone that I'm getting lots of exposure to, but I do have him in some lineups. If he's out, then I think it gets interesting because you have Kaminsky, who'd been starting for him when he was injured before. You also have had games recently where Kaminsky started and lost minutes to check Diallo. You had Dario Saric getting some minutes at the 5 as well. So it would be tough to be overly confident in any one player if Baines is out. But I think Kaminsky is the guy that I would look to first, especially because his salary has dropped. He's back down to 4,400 on DraftKings.
Okay. Yeah, Kaminsky's tough to get to just because he has not been good at all. But if Baines is out, you're going to get those minutes. How many minutes you give Kaminsky if Baines is out? 27.
So he played that game. I'm trying to find the last game that Baines sat.
And Check Diallo is out as well.
Okay, so yeah, that helps Kaminsky then too. I think
right.
I would give Kaminsky like 28 if Baines sits.
28. Anything else from this game, particularly the Phoenix side of the ball?
I don't think so. If Baines sits, I think it does open the door for a couple more minutes for Dario Saric as well.
Okay. So let's move this one on. Philly and Utah. It's going to be a tough defensive game. I don't expect to see a ton of scoring on either side. Wouldn't be surprised to see this one come down to the wire either, but it's got the lowest over under on the slate, 208.5. The Sixers are 5.5 point favorites with a 107 implied total, 101.5 for the Jazz. Just looking at this, the three top tier guys on the slate in terms of salary are Giannis Antetokounmpo, Trey Young, and Joel Embiid. Today on the strategy show, again, Josh and I had differing opinions here, and it's always fun to kind of hash it out with somebody else. They'll talk about it on Live Before Lock as well. But I actually have Joel Embiid third on this list, which I don't know. Maybe that's on an island. Where do you put Joel Embiid among these top three guys today?
Among the Philadelphia guys?
Or no. Because there's only three really top price guys on a 6-gamer. So I'm talking about between Giannis, Trey Young, and Embiid.
I have him behind Giannis, about the same as Young, but slightly ahead of Young.
Okay. I have him, I think, like 1.5 points ahead behind Young. So close, but yeah, pretty similar there. Talk to me starting with the front court here and Joel Embiid going up against Rudy Gobert. He struggled against good defenders this season. He had a respectable game against Gobert and the Jazz earlier this year. He ended up shooting five, but he shot 5 for 16. It was that he got to the line so frequently and actually eventually fouled Rudy Gobert out of this game, which is one of the ways you get to big games from Embiid. You look at his last three performances: 59, 57, and 59 DraftKings points, 14, 15, and 15 free throw attempts. That's huge. He needs to get to the line. He needs to get you to foul him in the post. That's his bread and butter, man. Do you see that happening today? And how much do you like him in terms of prioritizing him at this price?
I think it's a scary spot just because Utah is a quality defensive team. Neither of these teams play particularly fast, but I don't think it's as bad a spot as it would seem at first glance either. Utah hasn't been great in terms of post up efficiency. They rank in like the 55th percentile in defensive efficiency against post ups. They've allowed the 11th most post up points per game this season, and not that I put too much weight into it, but at least makes me feel a little bit better. Embiid has faced Gobert 3 times since the start of last season, once this year, twice last season. He's averaged 1.7 DraftKings points per minute. All 3 games have been good on a per minute basis. 56 DraftKings points in 36 minutes this year, 61.3 in 33, and 44.8 in 26 last season. So when you actually dig into the numbers, it's not that bad of a spot for Embiid. He's had success here before. It's not like I'm looking to get him in, 80% of my lineups or something like that. It's still pretty easy to see how he doesn't do well, but I just think it's a better spot than you would think at first glance when you talk about someone going up against Utah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I just like Trey Young's matchup better. And if I'm using that as the tiebreaker at a similar price point, I don't mind doing that. Looking at the rest of the Philadelphia 76ers, uh, Ben Simmons played phenomenally on the defensive end recently, racking up a ton of steals. He had three in like the final minute against the Pacers. It was spectacular, but he's just still not shooting with a lot of volume, getting to the line a little bit, and he's performed a bit better there. But there are aspects of his offensive game that clearly make us worry. Is he a triple double upside guy? He is, but uh, now that his price tag is coming back up to where we've seen it at before, it's a little bit tougher to get there against Utah. I have similar thoughts about a lot of this Philadelphia team on the offensive end. What are you doing outside of Joel Embiid with the Sixers?
I think that the pricing on Harris and Horford is kind of appealing on DraftKings because um and for Simmons too, because Ford is just such a weak position tonight that getting to those guys makes some sense. In the crunch I did before the show, I was coming in around the field on Horford in the low 20% range. It's not that I have a lot of confidence in these guys doing great in this matchup, but I think they are just a little bit cheaper than they probably should be. The minute should be secure. Josh Richardson out shouldn't hurt anything. Maybe helps a little bit. So secondary options for me, but I think that Horford followed by Harris, and then Simmons behind them because he's $2,000 more expensive.
What about Utah? Rudy Gobert is $7,400 on DraftKings, which I find kind of compelling because if this game stays close, Rudy Gobert is going to be on the floor a lot, and in competitive games, you're going to see him play 36 minutes. It's commonplace, really. You look at Milwaukee, 3-point win, 37 minutes. Brooklyn, 5-point win, 38. 1-point loss to Memphis, 36 minutes. 10-point loss to Minnesota, 36. Minnesota, 35. Golden State, close game, 35. And then recently against Memphis, 36. In non-blowouts, Rudy Gobert is playing a boatload of minutes. Is that enough to consider him at 7,400, just given the fact that he's on the floor and he's a +1 per minute guy?
It's still kind of tough for me to get there just because there's other guys on the slate that I want to prioritize. Utah as a team is just grading out as like the worst team for me, the least appealing in terms of plays at their respective price points. 7,400 is obviously reasonable, but only a 102 total for Utah. Two slow teams, a really, really good Philadelphia defense. I think the minutes will be there. He's averaging 1.1 DraftKings points per minute this season. I would expect him to produce a little bit below that in this matchup. So I'm not really that interested.
Okay. Would you rather have him or Jonas Valanciunas at 75?
Valanciunas.
What about the rest of this Utah team with Donovan Mitchell? I'll throw Mike Conley's name out there because I have to. On the whole, is this a spot that you're looking to avoid today?
Yeah. I have less interest in anyone from Utah than I do. Like every other team on the slate has at least one guy that stands out that I'm interested in. Like from Charlotte, it was Graham. I was interested in multiple Phoenix guys, but there's not a whole lot here from Utah.
Okay, so top plays from this game would be, I guess, Embiid for you.
Embiid, then Horford.
Okay. Now we'll move to Atlanta and get into a game that I think we'll have a decent amount to touch on. 222 total. Hawks are 6.5 point favorites. They've got a 114.3 implied, 107.8 for the Golden State Warriors. So you should see a fair amount of scoring on both sides of this game, despite them being two bad teams. Starting with Trey Young, though, uh, the the price tag is coming up, and rightfully so. I don't have any issue with that, especially on a short slate. I mean, you've got someone who is a 34.5% usage guy with a 44% assist rate. He's got a ton of upside here. And, you're seeing games where he's dropped 35 plus real points in 3 of his last 4. It's time to start talking about him alongside the Joel Embiids and God, even with in LA, Anthony Davis as well. They've all come in at similar price points, and I think that's reasonable. Now you've got him going up against Golden State, where the Hawks are a rare favorite at home. What are you doing with Trey Young here at 10.5 on DraftKings and at 10K flat on FanDuel? That's pretty favorable. $46 on Yahoo.
Yeah, more favorably priced on FanDuel than DraftKings for sure. Yahoo $46 is fine, and really 10.5 on DraftKings is fine too. But I think I'll be underweight on DraftKings right now. We have him projected as like the 8th highest owned player on the slate. I don't think I'll get there. It is obviously a good spot. We know the kind of ceiling that he has. Since the John Collins injury, when Jabari Parker was inserted into the starting lineup, 33.2% usage rate, 40.5% assist percentage. He's playing big minutes in competitive games. All that's great. I think he's a good option if you can get there. Like I said, I have him projected a little bit in terms of raw points. I have him a little bit ahead of Embiid, but when you consider the $1,000 in savings on DraftKings, I have Embiid as a slightly preferable option. But obviously, any Young I get to, I'm happy with, but easier to get there on FanDuel.
Sorry, what $1,000 in savings are you talking about
Young to Embiid.
on
Or
DraftKings?
sorry, $200 in savings.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, yeah, I'd be all about that
Yeah.
too. What about Jabari Parker?
I was getting more of him actually on DraftKings than Young, just because he's a forward and because it is a good spot. He, since joining the starting lineup, 24% usage rate, 12% rebounding percentage, 12.5% assist percentage. So contributing across the board as you would expect. I have him projected for a little over 1.1 fantasy points per minute here. Allen Crabbe being doubtful could benefit Parker. It's just one less of those wings that can steal minutes. I have Parker at 32 minutes here. I think it just maybe helps to solidify his minutes a little bit as well.
Okay, so outside of Parker and Trey Young, is there anybody here that you find yourself getting to with any confidence on Atlanta? Because it gets kind of ugly. You're talking about the Hunters and the Bemburys, and I know they've got some injuries here. Cam Reddish is I don't think we have any confirmation yet on Reddish, right?
He's still questionable.
Yeah, he's still questionable. So the wing spots just on this Hawks team is a wasteland every single night.
Yeah, if Reddish were to be ruled out, I think that Bembry would at least get a good chunk of minutes without Crabbe and without Reddish. What he does with them is anyone's guess. Obviously, he's not as productive when he plays alongside Trey Young, but at the same time, it is a favorable game environment. Lots of missed shots from Golden State, lots of turnover potential for Bembry to pick up steals. So he'd be a reasonable value if Reddish sits, but his price tag has come up also.
Yeah, it has, and I mean, I wouldn't expect something as dreadful as last time out, but I think it'd be a decent enough spot. Bembry also no longer on the injury report, so that's good. Do you have anything else here from the Hawks outside of Trey Young and Parker, who are the obvious 2 top options that you want to get to?
I don't.
Let's talk about the Warriors then. Short bench again. You're still dealing with a lot of injuries. You got no D'Angelo Russell. Even guys like Jacob Evans, and Damian Lee. It may not seem like it's like it makes any bit of a difference, but in a sense, it's consequential because there are more minutes opening up on a really short. They've got a very compressed roster right now. Draymond Green's already been ruled out for rest purposes, playing their second game of a back-to-back. I'm sorry, it is the second of a back-to-back. You got a few teams on a back-to-back. They just have a ton of injuries. So even if these guys aren't good, and even if their salaries are up a little bit from where you'd want them to be, we have to at least discuss the Warriors because there just aren't a lot of them on a short slate.
Yeah, they're as a team, I'm getting to them more than anyone else tonight. There's 9 guys capable of taking the floor, and that's including Kevon Looney, who is expected to play,
Right.
presumably on a minutes limit after not playing at all this year, getting hurt in the preseason. So there's just there's limited bodies here. Draymond being out most directly benefits Kai Bowman in terms of minutes. Yeah, I would expect 36 plus from Kai Bowman here. He's been good enough. He's averaged 0.83 DraftKings points per minute without Curry, Green, or Russell on the floor this year. Atlanta is one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They're 12th in pace. So, really appealing matchup from that standpoint. Then you get Alec Burks, who has a 22.7% usage rate without those guys on the floor. Eric Paschall has the highest usage rate at 23.9%. Those guys should both play 35, 36 minutes. Glenn Robinson should play around 35 minutes. He's less productive than Burks and Paschall, but it's still a reasonable price tag on Robinson and, tons of minutes there. Looney being back makes, I think, the front court rotation a little bit less easy to predict. I have Cauley Stein at 24 minutes. I have 18 apiece for Chris and Spellman, and then I gave 14 to Looney. I think that, you could go a couple minutes one way or the other with any of those guys and it would be reasonable. But the point is kind of that Looney being back, I don't think really takes away from any of those main guys because Cauley Stein hasn't been playing a ton of minutes for the most part anyway. And I don't think that Looney will lead into Eric Paschall or Robinson or Burks or Bowman.
So who are your oh, by the way, Cam Reddish is active. Bembry is expected also active. Who are your top options from the Golden State side? Feel free to get site specific if necessary.
Yeah. Burks, Paschall, Bowman on DraftKings.
Frank Ntilikina, sorry, that's big. Frank Ntilikina officially ruled out.
Cool. That's huge.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So DraftKings, I basically have Burks, Paschall, and Bowman all about the same when you factor in the salary. And then Robinson as a above average play, but behind them. On FanDuel, I need to pull that back up, but I have Burks as the top guy, then Paschall, then then Robinson, then Bowman, because Robinson is 900 less than Bowman on FanDuel.
Okay. Do you want to hit on anything else here? I want to make sure we cover it in total since it is one of the better games from a DFS standpoint, but I think we got to all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think one other thing to point out, I don't know if people will probably ask between now and lock, but I have it set so I can roster up to 4 guys from Golden State in any one lineup, just because with only 9 bodies and with one of those guys probably being limited in Looney, they just have to play minutes still, and it's a good matchup on top of that. The salaries are affordable, so I don't really see a reason to be limiting it to like 2 guys from Golden State or something like that.
Alan Crabb officially ruled out as well. He had been seeing relatively decent minutes.
Yeah.
Like 23 per game, but I guess it's not a huge difference. Not a high usage guy. Can't imagine that has a huge impact on anything today.
I don't hate getting to some $3,500 Reddish on DraftKings if he's low owned. Obviously, you're not expecting much out of him, but it's a really cheap price tag in a good game environment. But if he starts being projected for like 15% ownership or something, I'd just go somewhere else.
What are you giving Reddish in terms of minutes today?
I have him at 26.
26. Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, he had that one solid game, and that was the obvious result of Trey Young getting injured, and then it bailed a lot of people out because Trey Young only played like 12 minutes. But yeah, if he plays 26, 27 minutes against the Warriors, getting 25 fantasy points from him, it's never a probability. It's never like likely at him, but it's also something where 25 from Reddish in 27 minutes against the Warriors is also very doable.
Yeah, for sure.
See if we got any other injury news coming in. Looks like we are in business, up to date. 3 down, 3 to go. If you guys have yet to use the Cyber Monday code, then you're crazy. If you're not a premium subscriber and you haven't done this yet, you crazy. $1. That's right. $1 Cyber Monday special. $1 for an Awesemo Plus Platinum Weekly Pass for just $1. I don't know how many times I can say it. It expires Tuesday night, 2 a.m. So what, like 9 hours from now, 10 hours from now, whatever, it'll be expired because it's Cyber Monday and we want you guys to see all of the greatness that is behind the paywall at awesomemode.com. We're doing a Cyber Monday deal. All you got to do is use the promo code Cyber Monday. One word, Cyber Monday. Get an Awesemo Plus Platinum Weekly Pass for just $1. It's amazing. Get that in before Tuesday, December 3rd at 2 a.m. for $1. I mean, literally cheaper than a cup of coffee. It's probably cheaper than a Keurig cup. Like one single Keurig cup, Adam. Can't beat that.
You can't.
You can't. Thank you for your contribution. Let's move on. Milwaukee, New York. Giannis Antetokounmpo, highest projected player on this slate. You'd be crazy not to have him there. He is very expensive. They're $12,000 on DraftKings, on FanDuel 12.2, and on Yahoo 58. Let's just start with him here. Before we do, I'll let you know the odds on this game. Milwaukee Bucks, 16.5-point favorites, 222 total. They have a 119.3 implied. That's the highest on this slate. 102.3 for the Knicks. Monster spread here, Adam. But let's get to Giannis.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting spot just because there's obviously tons of blowout potential here. 17-point home favorites for Milwaukee. The Knicks suck. Milwaukee's great. I have Giannis at 32 minutes. He's averaged 32 and a half minutes per game this season. That obviously factors in the games where Milwaukee blows teams out, which happens quite a bit. But the reason I think that it's still interesting is, like you said, he's the top projected guy on the slate by a pretty wide margin because you don't have anyone else in his in that category in terms of what they do on a per minute basis. 1.94 DraftKings points per minute for Giannis this year. He's also pretty expensive. So I think that on DraftKings, he's a good play if you can get there. Obviously, there is some value on this slate, especially now we know that Ntilikina is definitely out. But it's a little bit tougher because like Tyus Jones, for example, on DraftKings is 56 or 5,700. There a lot of guys are. A lot of the value is still priced up a bit. So if you can get to Giannis, that's great. But I think I'll have more of him on FanDuel just because on FanDuel you have, a $4,000 Tyus Jones, $3,600 Dennis Smith. You have a sub 5K Glenn Robinson. You have all these really, really cheap guys on FanDuel that are actually cheaper than they are on DraftKings. And then you also have to roster two small forwards. So it just makes it a lot easier, I think, to get to Giannis on FanDuel than it does on DraftKings.
Okay. And I would agree with you there. It's such a weak position for sure. It makes it even more appealing. The rest of this team, we'll get to the center position with Brook Lopez ruled out, his brother getting another spot start. But let's talk about Eric Bledsoe first. Do you have any interest here at $6,500 on DraftKings?
Yeah, the minutes are obviously concerning. Middleton being back doesn't help that. George Hill being back definitely doesn't help that. He's averaging about 28 minutes per game. And of course, there's the same blowout risk for him there is for Giannis, but he's been really, really productive on a per minute basis. And one thing I do like about his price tag is, especially on DraftKings, where I think it's kind of difficult to get to Giannis, is that it's not that difficult for him to pay off 6,500 even in three quarters. He's very capable of doing it here. Ntilikina being out takes a very good backcourt defender off the floor for the Knicks as well. So I think that Bledsoe is a stronger play on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel.
Okay.
And also I wanted to point out Giannis is pretty easy to get to on Yahoo also because they have so many $10 guys over there.
So the center position with Brook Lopez out, Robin Lopez was, an obvious, just a clear play last time, knowing that he was minimum salary. Now he's $4,400 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's minimum salary at $3,500. And then on Yahoo, Brook Lopez coming in at 11. So definitely a big difference in terms of which site you're playing on. But let's talk about him for a moment. He got almost 24 minutes last game, played a lot in the first half. That game was a massive blowout, and he saw his minutes limited in the second half for good reason. Number one, what are you giving him in terms of playing time today? And number two, are you getting to Robin Lopez on one specific site, everywhere, nowhere? Kind of a big question to answer.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned how many minutes he played in the first half.
He
He was
played
on pace.
16, right?
Yeah, he was on pace to play like 30 to 32 minutes. Then that game blew out. I have him at 28 minutes here. I think that's probably a little high. Like 24, 26 would be reasonable too. The reason I personally have him that high is that that's kind of where I wanted to get it, so I had him as like a more or less neutral option because I
Right.
think the minutes do
Not too little, not too much. That'll
right.
put him right there. I noticed the same thing.
Yeah. So the point being, I think that he has a really wide range of outcomes. I think that 4,400 on DraftKings obviously is a riskier price point than 3,500 on FanDuel, but I still think he has a decent chance of beating that price point too. Like you would just need this game to stay somewhat competitive. You just need him to get, that 26, 28 minutes. Right now we only have him projected for 8% ownership on DraftKings. Using that number, I got to about 13, 14%. So it's not like I love Lopez, but I do think that he's a reasonable value option that you can use to be contrarian. On FanDuel at 3,500, obviously you're burning your center spot, but it's also not that great of a position because there's just not that many options today. If Valanciunas were to sit, it becomes an even weaker position.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Now, is there anywhere else other than Giannis and Lopez and Bledsoe that you could see yourself getting to here?
I don't think so. It's worth noting from a rotation standpoint that DJ Wilson was the backup center last game. Ilyasova remained the backup to Giannis. So if that is the case again, there's at least some potential for Wilson to get low to mid 20s in minutes. But as far as the wings go, I think Middleton being back takes away a lot of my interest in those guys because it's just really tough to confidently be giving any of them enough minutes to where I'd really want to roster them at their salaries.
Okay. Let's flip to the other side of this game, the New York Knicks. Like I said, 16.5 point dogs. You and I generally don't talk about blowouts all that often, but this one feels like a near certainty. But it shouldn't matter in a lot of cases, especially if you're talking about Frank Ntilikina being out and how Dennis Smith should get a ton of minutes with Elfrid Payton also remaining sidelined. You also have, for anyone that maybe saw the morning show, the strategy show, hasn't been able to, went to work, hadn't paid attention throughout the day. Marcus Morris is also sidelined, Adam. So why is that big? Well, because Marcus Morris was playing 30 plus minutes every night, and Frank Ntilikina was also seeing a lot of run at that point guard position. So this is, you're voiding, say, low end 60 minutes from the starting rotation, high end 68, 70 minutes.
Yeah, there's tons of minutes here. The obvious concern is that David Fizdale
Baines
has
is
no
out.
issue.
I'm sorry to cut you off again. Aaron Baines is out. So that's another big one. We are getting this news early.
Yeah, tons of value opening up. The Diallo being out, as you mentioned, is a big deal there too for Kaminsky. But so with the Knicks, the concern is that even though all those minutes opened up, David Fizdale still has no issue filling minutes however the hell he wants to. So it's not like it's not like Golden State where you can with certainty say these guys have to get minutes, but it still does open the door to where you can assume that someone like Dennis Smith Jr. is going to get a ton of minutes. He played 38 yesterday. I have him at 32 today, which would still obviously be a top value on the slate. 3,200 on DraftKings, 3,600 on FanDuel. Kadeem Allen is active, so that is one name that Fizdale could use to just screw over everyone that played Dennis Smith Jr. But obviously, you can't really work that into projections. Just have to know that he's there.
All right. So now that we've got all that taken care of, let's go ahead and give some ideas of what we're getting here, what we expect in terms of minutes, and how much you like these guys. We just touched on it a little bit, but I want to nail this down. Dennis Smith Jr. is $3,200 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's equally cheap at $3,600. And no surprise, over on Yahoo, Dennis Smith is minimum salary at $10. Is he? I have him here in our syllabus as our NBA syllabus behind paywall. It's a nice little feature that you can use if you're a premium member. Don't forget about that each day if you want a quick little piece of research. Also, use Deeper Dive to get 50% off your first month. If you want to, like if you did this Cyber Monday thing, $1 for the weekly pass and you liked it, I'm assuming you can still use Deeper Dive to get half off your first month. I don't know. Deeper Dive, all one word, get you half off, platinum all access. But I have Dennis Smith as the best cash game play. So does Josh. So does EMAC. Alex doesn't. But that's 3 of the 4 with that today. What about you?
I would too had I filled it out, but
I
I was
know.
already in
Well,
the
I
deep dive.
figured you would have. Yeah. So just let's talk about him a little bit here. There's not too much to say, but just minutes and what you expect to see with 2 point guards on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, I have Smith at 32 minutes. We saw, I think it was 38.7 yesterday. So I think that it's a guessing game to some extent because it's the Knicks, but my best guess is that you're getting 30 plus minutes from Dennis Smith. So far this year, he's averaged 0.79 DraftKings points per minute. Last year, once he joined the Knicks, he averaged 0.97 points per minute. Today, I have him projected for 0.87 points per minute. So all those, basically just go to say that he's an obvious, really good value. I can't imagine playing cash games without him. I would look to play as much as I can against anyone who doesn't have him in cash today in the future going forward. He's my highest owned guy in tournaments too. It's not even close. In the crunch I did before the show, I had about 95% on DraftKings. I expect that'll be similar across all sites. It's just the spot where I'm getting him in and then looking to be different elsewhere.
Frank Kaminsky is starting. Circling back quickly, how many minutes we giving Kaminsky with Diallo out as well? Would you consider him now one of the top values on the slate?
Yeah, I haven't mapped it out yet, but I'm probably gonna go 28 to 30 minutes on Kaminsky. Diallo being out just does help to solidify those minutes. I think that you could give a couple extra minutes to Saric, potentially a couple extra minutes to either Bridges or Cam Johnson as well.
So I think I'm probably going to give Kaminsky upwards of 30, maybe fall in the middle at 29. It seems pretty reasonable given that Diallo was actually in line to see some decent minutes had he played and Bane's been out. 28 to 30 will probably get you enough. 28 alone will get you enough anyway, I would think, Adam.
Yeah, it definitely should.
What about the rest of New York? Kind of an ugly breakdown here with Marcus Morris out because, the last time this team played, which was yesterday, you saw Julius Randle get 34 minutes. Taj Gibson saw 20. I'm just talking front court for a minute. Bobby Portis at 21, Mitchell Robinson at 20. But here's the thing with Mitchell Robinson again. Like I'm projecting him for 28 minutes today, and I have to because I don't know what the deal is in terms of foul trouble. Yes, hit dude is in so much foul trouble, but I can't project him to foul out, unfortunately. And he played 31 and 29 minutes in two games where either he did foul out against the Sixers, but late. And then against Brooklyn on the 24th, he played 19 minutes, but also fouled out. So like Fizdale's trying to get in minutes. If you looked at yesterday, man, we'll get into the Morris stuff in a second. I actually want to touch on this first since we're on a roll. I'm on a roll. With Mitchell Robinson, the fantasy production hasn't followed even when he's getting the minutes, which is unfortunate. But he fouled out in 20 minutes, 19 minutes. He fouled out against Brooklyn. Like he's fouled out in 3 of his last 4 games. Do we just have to accept this or do we have to project him for more? Because I'm projecting him for more, assuming that he doesn't foul out.
I have him at 26 minutes because I think you do have to at least take into consideration to some extent how often he loses minutes to foul trouble.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point. That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back over the last month, he's averaging like 22 minutes per game. Obviously, those minutes have ramped up recently in games where he's not in foul trouble, but he's still in foul trouble a lot. Like that's a legitimate part of his game and why his median projection on minutes, I think, has to be lower than what Fizdale would like him to play. But it's still, I think 26 minutes is reasonable. And then when you're, assuming that you're factoring standard deviation and range of outcomes into the lineups you make, you're still going to get to some Robinson because he does have such a wide range of outcomes and you're accounting for that. So even at 26 minutes, I'll get to some. I don't think I'll get to a ton, but he does have at least probably a higher ceiling than a lot of the, similarly priced guys around him.
So if you were to take per 36s, right? Take anyone that's playing, let's say, at least 20 minutes per game. Okay. Mitchell Robinson, personal fouls per 36. He's averaging 6.6 personal fouls per 36. Now, that's just ridiculous. But he's also somebody that we've seen, and this, we have a little bit of history here. The guy has been a pretty good per minute player, right? Like, even though recently, if your recency bias got a hold of you, you're like, oh, dude, not only does he foul out all the time, but he hasn't been good even when he's on the court. Even despite this ugly stretch, he's still averaging north of a fantasy point per minute on the year. So I don't know. I think there's always something to be said about having some of a guy like him because I would imagine, Adam, that he's probably going to get no ownership at all today.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a great price point in this spot, I don't think, but it's at least it's at least reasonable in tournaments because of the upside that he has.
And I also wonder though, with Morris out, does does Mitchell also have an opportunity to see a couple more minutes? It's possible that he just splits the center minutes with Gibson and Portis gets most of his minutes at the 4, right?
Yeah, that's how I have it projected. I have
Me
Gibson at
too.
18. I have Gibson at 18. I have Robinson at 26, and then I have Portis picking up the other 4 at center, and then picking up 16
Okay.
at
See, I had
power forward.
Portis with 2 at center. That's where we're different. And you have him at 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense. Now, okay, let's do this then. How do you see this shaking out among the wings? And it should trickle up to the front court to some extent, like we talked about with Marcus Morris giving up those big minutes at the 3.
Yeah, this is obviously where I expect it to just be an absolute mess, and for whoever's playing well to just get more minutes. One thing that did stand out was Kevin Knox got to start yesterday, only played 21.7 minutes. He did pick up 2 fouls in the first, basically 6 minutes of his first stint in the third quarter. In the third quarter, he played down to about the 3 minute mark, so potentially lost about 2 to 3 minutes due to foul trouble there. Subbed out with 3 minutes to go, or sorry, 2 minutes to go on his second stint, which could have been a result of already having 2 fouls. Can never really tell with Fizdale, but there's at least a potential, I think, and where I haven't projected, I have him at 28 minutes here. You and I talked about it before the show, and I kind of increased it as we talked about it. It's still not like I think Kevin Knox is a great play, but he did average 0.75 fantasy points per minute last season. He at least has the opportunity, I think, to play reasonably big minutes here if he plays well, which is a huge if because he's terrible. But he'll get the opportunity. It's the guys he's competing with for minutes are Damian Dotson, Wayne Ellington, possibly Trier, who didn't get into the rotation yesterday. Possibly Kadeem Allen. It's not like there's great players that he's competing with. So he at least has the opportunity. He's projected for close to no ownership right now, which makes it somewhat appealing in large field tournaments, at least.
All right. Anything else for we? I know we spent a lot of time on this, but it's totally necessary. Anything else here that we need to discuss?
Yeah, I hate spending time on the Knicks because I agree it's necessary, but it's just a whole lot of like I have
For
no
sure.
freaking idea. But yeah, no, I mean RJ Barrett's RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, like those guys, I don't think are really impacted one way or the other by Morris being out. I have both of them at 34 minutes. Barrett's minutes have been all over the place recently, but his price tag isn't really that appealing anyway.
Okay. Um, Memphis and Indiana. We got 2 to go here. Let's go Memphis, Indiana first, and then we got a 10 p.m. game. The Grizzlies are 9.5 point dogs on the road, or I'm sorry, at home. 9.5 point dogs, 216.5 total. Pacers have a 113 implied, 103.5 for the Memphis Grizzlies. I'll let you jump right into this one, but I want to just start, of course, with John Morant being out, and how you see the price point being affected for guys like Tyus Jones, who is priced wildly different across all of these sites. But not just that. I mentioned to Josh in this morning's strategy show that Dylan Brooks with Morant off the court has actually been solid this year. 1.04 fantasy points per minute, season uptick in assists, a 27% usage rate, which is really solid. Is he worth getting to? And then we can finish, or we can conclude with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Jonas Valanciunas, who, if he plays, is always a high upside monster at the 5.
Yeah, I think that Memphis is an interesting team. Obviously, we're waiting on the Valanciunas news. You mentioned Dylan Brooks, and yeah, he has a usage rate up over 26% without John Morant on the floor this year. It's not a good matchup for Memphis. Indiana is a slow team. They're a good defensive team, but Dylan Brooks is $10 on Yahoo. I think that really stands out.
I love
And
that price point on Yahoo. Just
yeah, and
can't get
he's
away
a
from it.
reasonable value on other sites as well. Tyus Jones, Yahoo $10, FanDuel $4,000. Love him on both of those sites. DraftKings mid 5K range, not really all that interested there. If you get to some, I think it's okay, but clearly a priority on FanDuel and Yahoo. Much less so on DraftKings. I actually think I'll have more of D'Anthony Melton on DraftKings than I will Tyus Jones, just because Melton should get all of the backup point guard minutes. I have him projected for 18, but that could certainly be more than 18. And he's 3,400 at low ownership. So not a high probability play, but I think I'll actually have more Melton than Jones on DraftKings.
Okay. Um, Jonas Valanciunas.
Yeah, he missed yesterday's game with an illness. It wasn't an actual injury.
Sorry. Once again, Bembry's starting ahead of Reddish.
Yeah, I bumped Bembry to 30 minutes. I cut Reddish to 20.
Okay, to 20.
Yeah.
And Mikal Bridges is available to play. That's actually pretty meaningful. And if we have a second, I'll tell you why once we get to the end of the show. Go ahead, man.
So Valanciunas, he didn't miss with an injury. He missed with an illness. So I would expect him, if he's back, to be full strength. Played 32 and 34 minutes in his last two games. Brandon Clark is out, so his direct backup is out. I have Valanciunas at 30 minutes here, which he's averaged 1.37 DraftKings points per minute without Morant on the floor this year. It's not a great spot again against Indiana, but the offense, he should be really, really involved offensively. And I think that he has he has 30 plus minute upside. So I really like Valanciunas if he's in. If he's out, then I expect Jackson starts at the 5, Crowder slides to the 4. We get Solomon Hill joining the starting lineup. It would mean more minutes for Bruno Caboclo. It would mean more minutes for Grayson Allen. But if Valanciunas is in, he's a core play for me.
Okay. Anything you got on the Pacers side? I say this way, I'm just not huge there. Now that everyone's healthy and their price points are all, coming up, I could clearly make a decent argument for Sabonis and for Malcolm Brogdon, whose minutes have been through the roof over his past two games. But with Warren and with Lamb and Turner, everyone getting 30 plus minutes a night, I just don't have as much interest as I normally would. What about you?
I think I'm a little higher there. It's just a really appealing matchup against the fast-paced Memphis team that doesn't play defense. I have Brogdon for 34 minutes, Sabonis for 35. Sabonis has been productive even with Brogdon on the floor this year. So both of those guys are core plays for me. I have them both in cash on DraftKings right now. I'm getting to a lot of them anywhere. Lamb, I think, is more valuable where you can roster him at forward. Pretty decent spot for him. One thing that stood out from their last game was that Goga didn't play in the second half. So maybe you'll see them go back to Sabonis being the backup center, which would make Sabonis more valuable. It would also open the door for more minutes for Miles Turner. Turner's per minute production obviously still in question because he's the lowest usage rate guy out of the 5 starters, and he loses rebounding opportunities to Sabonis. But that I think is at least worth mentioning.
Okay. That all you got for the Pacers?
Yeah, I think that I'll probably have more exposure to Indiana than any team except for Golden State.
Okay. Yeah. So we're definitely different pages here. I'll have some, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's going to be a team that I'm in love with just because the prices are making it a little bit more difficult for me to get there. Sacramento and Chicago. Sacramento Kings playing at a crawling pace this year, 212 total, second lowest on the slate, 108.5 implied for the Kings, 103.5 for the Bulls. Kings 5-point favorites. I want to start for the Bulls because I think you and I probably are on different pages here just based on how much Indy you have. But I really like Zach LaVine as a low owned tournament play. See, his ownership's come up. It was at 2% earlier today, which is insane. But even at 12, like ever since Jim Boylan called him out, and this isn't a narrative because it's all right here, and benched him against Miami, you've seen some ridiculous rates, like 35% usage. And he's been getting 35 minutes per game, averaging monster shot volume, 1.42 fantasy points per minute over that 4-game stretch. That's not the end all be all, but I do think on a short slate like this, where there's a lot of other mid-range talented people are getting to, I don't mind getting to LaVine at all if he's going to keep jacking up 20 plus shots a night. What are you doing with the Bulls?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm overweight on LaVine by a lot. In addition to the usage you mentioned, we're just seeing a ton of minutes out of him too. We're talking about someone who's
For
averaged
sure.
like 32 minutes for the season, but in recent games, 38, 36, 30, 35. So that's been, really good to see. The shots are obviously there. Sacramento is not a good team defensively. It's a really slow Sacramento team is really the only negative I can point to, but I'm with you. If, LaVine's projected for around 10% ownership, in the crunch I did before the show, I had about 28% on DraftKings. So getting to a lot of LaVine, getting a decent amount of Chris Dunn as a value option, assuming he starts again. I have him at 29 minutes. He's just, really cheap, $10 on Yahoo, 4,600 on DraftKings. Satoransky is 13 on Yahoo, but not as appealing on the other site. So LaVine and Dunn are my 2 highest owned guys from Chicago.
Yeah, me too. Outside of that, there's not a ton of interest I have. Sacramento side, what are you doing with the Sacramento Kings here at home? Pretty big favorites.
Yeah, actually getting to a decent amount of Sacramento. Buddy Hield playing huge minutes, 27.5% usage rate since Fox's injury, averaging 36.5 minutes per game since then. So I think he's a strong play here, reasonably priced, pace up spot. Chicago's a decent team defensively, but they do play at a much faster pace than Sacramento. Bogdan's only been playing about 28, 29 minutes in most games recently, but he does have a 27% usage rate and a 34.5% assist percentage since Fox went down. Bielitsa's playing like 26 minutes. Trevor Ariza's probable, which certainly doesn't make me feel any more comfortable in Bielitsa, but I still think he's a reasonable secondary option, as is Rashawn Holmes. But Hield and Bogdanovich are the guys that I'm getting to the most from Sacramento.
Okay, top overall plays from this game.
Hield, Levine, Bogdanovich.
Okay, and we only have a couple seconds here, but I just wanted to throw this out because I think it's important. I know Josh and Spags will touch on it, but while you were talking, I was just looking over the available players for Phoenix, and dude, with Diallo out and Baines out, of course, no Ayton either. Kaminsky's got to be playing 30 minutes, and you would think that Saric probably gets almost all of the backup center minutes, and I don't even know if Cameron Johnson's going to play.
Yeah, Johnson's still questionable. I mean, they could have a really, really thin front court here.
It's going to be rough. We'll let those guys cover it. And hey, if you enjoy the show, you want to help support us, very simply click that thumbs up, like the video. It helps us a lot, and we greatly appreciate it. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and wish you the best of luck today. We'll be back with you tomorrow on the Deeper Dive. Remember, Cyber Monday gets you $1. Doesn't get you $1. It gets you a week of the Awesemo Plus Platinum for $1, which is amazing. Get in there. But first, stick around. Live Before Lock coming up next.
It should be starting up now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Awesemo.com Live Before Lock show. We're taking you through the 6-game NBA slate we have today. Should be an interesting one with some news already greatly affecting a lot of the lineups you'll be playing tonight. I'm Chris Spags, joined as always on Mondays by my pal, the Chubster, Josh Engelman. How are you doing, Josh?
Pretty good, I guess. I don't know. I cut my hand today after the strategy show. That kind of stinks. It hurts.
How did you do that?
Changing out a water bottle in our water cooler. I got it caught on a piece of metal, took a decent chunk out the inside. It's like bleeding through all the stuff now. But other than that, I'm great. I've had a good day. How about you? How's your day?
Actually kind of annoying too. I went to go to the bank, and then the parking lot by the Bank of America is closed. And then there was a traffic cop sitting around who was just waiting to give people tickets for parking in the red zone. I guess nice that he warned me, but very inconvenient trip to the plant store that I had to go to today, which was cash only. So I had to go and work around that. But we're here now. And you know what? Today's a great day for a couple of reasons. It's Cyber Monday. We're on the internet. So that means it's our day, a day for us to celebrate ourselves. But also, it is a day that we're presented by Super Draft. So let's hit that first right now. If you go to superdraft.io, you'll get $20 free with a $100 deposit if you use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. That is $20 in super cash that you get right away. You should be checking out a lot of their tournaments too, because A, they have a ton of overlay. B, they have a tournament style called Multiplier where you don't even have to know salaries. Just pick your guys and go from there. So over to superdraft.io and use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your $20 free with any $100 deposit. And today is a doubly special day because it is, again, Cyber Monday. We have a special Cyber Monday deal going right now. Supplies may be limited because we have been apparently doing it at a very high clip. If you go to awesemo.com/join right now, use the promo code Cyber Monday. It's a very simple one. We didn't get very creative with it. Cyber Monday will get you a $1 platinum all access pass to Awesemo Plus for 1 week. So you get 1 week free of all the data we talk about across all the sports for just $1. Josh, we've been doing this for a while. This is the best package that we've had to offer for any sort of promo, I think, for the entire time we've been here.
Yes, our package today on Cyber Monday is the best package you can cyber with.
That is, well, I would disagree, and I think a lot of people on vintage AIM chats in the mid-90s would disagree. But, you know, I believe in those folks and the photos they brought to the table. But anyway, go right now to Cyber Monday. Go use the promo code Cyber Monday, rather, on awesemo.com/join. And do it while you can, because there's a decent chance if the site has any issues, you might have to close down the promo code for the day, because we've been killing it. All right, Josh, let's talk about it. Speaking of discounts, we got a discount on all the players today because a lot of guys are out. We officially got the news during the deeper dive, which they talked about. No Frank Ntilikina tonight for the Knicks. Instead, we're going to get a full run of Dennis Smith Jr., presumably, even though Kadeem Allen is active as well, has been called up from the G League. Dennis Smith, the chalk play of the day, the value play of the day, or at least one of them. What are you doing with Dennis Smith today where he's going to be pretty highly owned in our next ownership update?
I assume I have north of 95%. Hopefully I have 100, but I assume it's probably like 95, something like that. He's the best play of the day.
Okay, yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's just he ran 38 minutes last game with Ntilikina going out, I think in the first quarter with that back issues he's been having. So it is a spot here where it seems like Smith should get the run. I do think having Kadeem Allen in tow, and also this game where they're a 16-point dog on the road at Milwaukee. Are you playing any Kadeem Allen? Because I put in a little bit just because I'm used to this. We got Fizdaled so often last year. I did want to get a little Kadeem in there.
I will have 0 Kadeem Allen. Apologies to my homie from Wilmington, North Carolina, but I can't do it today. Although, if you are listening to this for some strange reason, Kadeem, don't be afraid to DM me and let me know if you're getting any additional run.
Okay, that's fair. I think Kadeem Allen, of course, the pride of Wilmington, unlike some people on this stream. Though you did get 2 touchdowns yesterday in our game. We do.
So can we talk about that? Like, I feel like we're not going to do it. Obviously, I know we're not going to do it. There should have been some mechanism where if you get 2 touchdowns, that's considered a correct pick.
No, it is not a correct pick because he only had 60-something yards and 2 touchdowns, which is not the criteria. It has to be 100 yards and 1 touchdown. A well-rounded diet, a well-balanced meal of yards and touchdowns.
Agreed. Can we at least acknowledge it's a great pick?
It was a good pick. It wasn't as good as Miles Sanders was, but you know what was in that workaday world we had yesterday.
Who had more fantasy points?
I believe Devonte Adams said briefly, but if we're going by salary relative to value, it would be Miles Sanders.
I didn't even mean it like that. I just had I had no idea.
Oh yeah, no, it was Adams. It was. Yeah. I thought you were rubbing my face in it, but no, it was Adams.
No. I didn't know. I figured it was pretty close.
Yeah, no, it was Adams by like two fantasy points, I believe. So gotcha. It was close, but yeah, no, great play by you. Unfortunately, not 100 yards on a touchdown. Tough game.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? No regrets.
No regrets at all. Sorry. So Dennis Smith, we're playing a lot of. Yeah. Same thing we always have when he's a near minimum price value. It's hard to not just get the guy into your lineups and go from there. It is a tough matchup, though. I guess what are the ways to you that you would think Dennis Smith could fail today? It seems like there's always a lot of them. But going against Milwaukee, I mean, what is the risk with Dennis Smith, and where would you cap it if you were a player who's watching a stream right now and thinking about having 100% Dennis Smith?
I would have 100% Dennis Smith.
Okay, so it's that. Wow, all right, you're there.
Yeah, I have 95% or something on my last crunch, 98. It's the no-brainer play of the day. That doesn't mean it can't fail, but he is on a level of value that is unparalleled on this slate.
Okay, so that's fair. Look, I have a lot of Dennis Smith. I got away from him because I do think there is a bit of an opportunity cost even on DraftKings to having him in there because he's just a point guard position. So you can't like put him in the shooting guard spot. You're either putting him in one of the guard spots or the utility spot or point guard. And I think, if you miss out on Alec Burks having a bigger day, on Kai Bauman, Trey Young, both guys who are point guard exclusive, I do think that's the one thing I would say with DraftKings in particular. But I agree from a value standpoint, like I would have 100%, but I'm actually playing it closer to the vest today because of that opportunity cost.
Yeah, I'm all DSJ, so I anxiously await the fisting from Fizdale.
It's Kadeem Allen. I don't get if you're going 100%, like go 99, but in one Kadeem Allen, the exact same price. Well, on DraftKings are the exact same price.
Why? So I could hope that one lineup is still okay for the other 8 spots? I'm good.
But that's going to shake free then and get to the top of tournaments.
I'll pass.
All right, fine. I would say if I were a person out there who, like Josh, is maybe considering playing 100% Dennis Smith, I'd play 99, just throwing one Kadeem Allen, just because we saw the song and dance quite a bit last year. And there also is a pretty big blowout risk in this game, I would think. And those things could benefit Kadeem Allen, who's a pretty good permanent player as well. So that's me, though. Here's another value, though. This value I'm actually kind of, I guess, a little more bullish on just because I don't see how he doesn't get 30-plus minutes. And the deeper dive guys, Lofty in particular, was talking about this right before we came on. Frank Kaminsky, I think, our ownership hasn't updated fully, but we have no Check Diallo in the mix, no Aaron Baines in the mix. Those are 2 key players here. Charlotte also pretty bad versus centers, both from a DVP standpoint. It's not something we look at a lot, but for center, that's something that does jump out and just looks like a really nice spot for Frank where he's going to, I would think, get 30 minutes. Are you with Frank quite as much as Dennis Smith, or where are you on the Dennis Smith 0 to 100 scale?
Not even remotely close to the same as far as I'm concerned. I have him at 29 minutes right now. I think he's a solid value. He's 4,100 on FanDuel, 4,400 on DraftKings. Like the increase in money is big in this spot. If you were priced minimally, it would be relatively comparable. He's gonna have to get a ton. I think it seems to me like Dario Saric will play most of the backup center minutes, if not all. The news on Cameron Johnson's availability is going to be sneaky important, especially for someone like Mikal Bridges. Otherwise, they just got a bunch of guards. So I'm going to be having some Kaminsky. There's really no way around that. But I don't get the sense that I'm going to have like crazy amounts. He's clearly the best pay down power forward, at least on FanDuel, but like not on a level even comparable to Smith.
Okay. I mean, for me, I was pretty much going heavy on Baines on the assumption that he was going to be in because I thought it was a really nice spot for him. And also by the transitive property also for Ricky Rubio, who's been a much better player in court time where Aaron Baines is on the floor for whatever reason. So I was intrigued by both those guys. Came off both of them because obviously Baines isn't going to be in. But I still think Kaminsky, to me, it's hard to see him not getting 30 minutes. Again, the matchup is really there for him. And we want to throw revenge games in the mix. It is also a revenge game, too. So why not throw that in there, too? I like the spot for Kaminsky. So I would really go heavy on him, too. Again, I have less than Dennis Smith because he's not a minimum price guy or just $200 more than minimum price on DK. But to me, dual position eligibility, like I like the situation for Kaminsky quite a bit. Though same kind of opportunity cost thing where if he puts up 30 fantasy points and you have a lot of guys putting up 50, that could be a bit of a risk.
Kaminsky revenge game 75% plus. Yeah, no.
Look, Kaminsky revenge. That's the most important revenge you can find. We did get an ownership update 5 minutes ago, by the way. So,
Zam. That means that I could run a crunch.
Kaminsky at 21% on DK. Like I don't know.
Sounds about right to me.
I'm double that. I'm very big on Frank tonight, but we'll see. It's never fun to live and die by Frank Kaminsky. So certainly some ways that could fill me with regret by the end of the day. What are you doing with, we talked about this before we came on the air, but you can tell the people real fast. How are you handling Jonas Valanciunas, who's in a really nice spot here? Or actually not really a really nice spot, but he should just see minutes. He's been seeing over 32 minutes his last couple games that he was active. Did miss that last game. Really not anybody else left at center there because Brandon Clark is out. So you could see some Bruno Caboclo minutes, could see Solomon Hill at the 5, which I don't see how that works against Indiana. But what are you doing with Jonas right now on the assumption, I guess, on the questionable status he has, and what assumption are you making with him?
Right now, I have him in. I don't really know what else I can do for it. Playing close to 30 minutes. He's my second favorite center if he's in, at least on FanDuel, 7,600. I don't really know what he's relative to on DK. Let's see, 7,500. He kind of just blends in on DraftKings, but on FanDuel, I expect to have quite a bit. I just think he's at a really nice price point relative to just the kind of lackluster center position today.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonably fair. Not a great center spot overall on the day, but yeah, no, I think that's we'll get into a question here too about which Memphis guys are the value guys, and talk a little about Bruno Caboclo. But yeah, so if Jonas is out, that really does change everything for Memphis in a meaningful way, because no Clark too, you don't really have a great read on the rotation because he was in that last game. What do you think is the positives here? Who gains something by Jonas being out?
So let me hop over to it so I can make sure I look at it. Bruno Caboclo, obviously. Jaren Jackson, to an extent. Minutes just become a little bit. They're going to be more likely to let him die out there and pick up 6 fouls. That's for sure. Solomon Hill is going to get more minutes. He's not particularly great when he gets them. So the biggest benefactor is probably Bruno Caboclo. He'll become a pretty heavily needed value play.
Also, when did he become like a nominal center? Like, I feel like he was a 4 last year, who also played a lot of 3, and now he's a 5 for them. Like, that just seems.
It's not that he's a 5. They're out of bodies. He's a 5 by default.
Well, true, but he also is a 5 on DraftKings, which kind of threw me for a loop. I figured he'd be small forward, power forward, and he's in fact power forward center.
I mean, everybody's every position now.
That is fair. It is positionless basketball, but for Memphis in particular, because they just don't have guys who can play positions right now. Stack in the premium Slack asking, how much Jaren Jackson are you sitting on, I guess, on DraftKings? I don't know if you're playing DraftKings tonight.
I am not playing on DraftKings. I can't imagine it would be any sort of large amount.
I put a little bit of him in just because I was getting enough Caboclo and enough Hill where I was like, all right, at this point, this means other people will be getting Caboclo and Hill. So I'll try and hope that Jaren Jackson goes off here. He did have a big game against them a couple weeks ago for whatever that's worth. It's not worth the most, especially given his foul issues and the fact that he's going to be the only big there who can really do anything. But he did have, what was it? He had like 40 fantasy points in like 20 minutes or something. Just double check that. On the 25th, he had shot for 10 for 15 in 23 minutes, and he had 38 fantasy points in that game. Hard to expect him to shoot 10 for 15. Hard to expect him to not foul out in 23 minutes, but those are the risks. But it did jump out to me as being interesting that he did have a really nice game in a spot where he had much less runway.
You know what's really fun? When someone in chat says, stop saying Jonas in all caps, but spells it with the Y. Completely unaware that that's exactly how you say his name. So congratulations. You have no idea what you're talking about.
And have they in fact played themselves?
Yeah, probably working on it. Yeah. Jonas. That is exactly how that name is said.
Yeah, that is not one of the names that I get wrong. Frank Ntilikina, I say a different way each time because I know where the T and the I's are, and it screws me up mentally. And I don't know that I've ever heard it pronounced fully the way that I would like, but Jonas Valanciunas, that's one. That's no debate on that one.
100% Jonas.
Anybody else Memphis-wise are getting? The backcourt also could be interesting here. We have no Ja Morant. Trey Young's priced up quite a bit. I think on DraftKings. I don't know if he's quite as priced up on FanDuel, but he's still, there are guard minutes to go around there. D'Anthony Melton, a guy who should see more run. Grayson Allen also saw a run last game, but it was a blowout. So I'm not sure how viable he is. But what about the Memphis backcourt? Any of these guys landing for you?
I mean, oh my God, why can't I think of his name? Tyus Jones on FanDuel, very much in play. He's going to be my second most owned point guard. That's for sure. However, the rest of these guys are kind of grimy. Like, how excited can anyone get over the potential of like rostering, I don't know, Grayson Allen? I like Dylan Brooks a little bit on both sites. 4,900 on FanDuel, very reasonable. But I don't get the sense that I'm going to have much out of Memphis outside of Dillon Brooks, especially if Jonas is in. If Jonas is out, then like I think Grayson Allen probably gets enough minutes to be reasonable. DeAnthony Melton's sort of sneaky on DraftKings for 3,400. I don't think that's the worst play in the world in like a large field GPP. That's the play that you should be going to in lieu of Kadeem Allen, that's for sure.
I think they're equitable plays. Kadeem Allen also 200 cheaper, but no, DeAnthony Melton, I agree. I think he's the guy who does pop up projection wise. I don't mind Grayson Allen either, though. I'm probably a bit clouded by him going nuts in the home stretch of last year where he had like an 80 fantasy point day. Him and Anthony Simons, two guys who are forever burned into my brain by going nuts for me at those points of last year. But, Grayson Allen's been productive per minute. I think he's also a guy like Memphis to me would be the team I would go to. Like if you're going to play Dennis Smith in utility, I think pulling one of these guys and hoping Dennis Smith somehow fails would be the move. Like I know you're 100% Dennis Smith guy, but from a tournament perspective, I think just splitting some ownership amongst these guys, I think wouldn't be the worst move in the world.
Just stick with Dennis Smith Jr.
Okay. Anyway, so that's Memphis. I think that's pretty much enough with the these Grizzlies. Any other Grizzlies you want to touch on? You want to just go through the roster?
Not
want to touch
really.
on Marco Gurdurich?
No. Chris Middleton's starting. I don't think it matters, but it's interesting.
That would certainly cut Giannis's per minute numbers a little bit because he does gain like 0.2 points per minute from a fantasy point per minute perspective with Middleton out. I mean, not that would take me off Giannis by any stretch, but I think it does kind of cut things a little bit for him and Bledsoe.
It's probably not changing anything for me today.
Yeah, no, I don't think it would change anything, but I do think that's certainly, I wasn't heavy on Giannis. I kind of got there enough with I'm still under the field a little bit, just because of the risk of the blowout and the fact like it was a back-to-back, but he played 20 minutes last game. And that's because Milwaukee's at full strength, can blow teams out of the water now. I don't know about a depleted Knicks squad, how they're going to keep it competitive against Milwaukee and make Giannis play a full run of minutes. But I know it's not something we project, but that does scare me a little bit about Giannis's price point.
Getting messages from the overlords. Cyber Monday code is off the table now.
Okay, so hopefully you got in there, guys, and we will update you if it becomes available at any point. But supplies have been flying off the shelves, off the virtual cyber shelves. So hopefully you got in there while you could.
It'll be reactivated sometime after lock.
Okay, so yeah, keep your eyes peeled there, then, guys. You'll have a chance. I would say go 7:30 East Coast time just to be safe, but go then because there's a lot of traffic comes to the site. People trying to sign up today, which good for us, but makes it tough sometimes for all the people trying to use the site normally. All right, let's go to some of the other ownership guys because are higher owned guys because there are some that I think I'm going to jump out some more than others, and I guess Tyus Jones we should talk about a little more because of FanDuel's his pricing there is more appealing. Did you land on any decent amounts of him, given the fact that he is priced pretty similar to your boy Dennis Smith?
Yeah, I'll have like 40-50% of Tyus Jones. He's pretty clearly the second best point guard option. DraftKings a little bit different. He's priced up, but don't feel bad jamming him in there as well.
Yeah, ownership-wise on FanDuel right now, both Dennis Smith and Tyus Jones are pretty close. That could certainly change as we get closer to lock. The ownership projections do get more accurate as we go, but that is something where there is pretty close swath right now between those two guys on FanDuel. Definitely not the case on DraftKings. What are you doing with Trey Young today? We talked a little bit about Giannis, and Trey Young is going to be the other high-priced guy on both the sites. Been going nuts recently. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's had like really been over where you'd want him to be in his last 3 out of 4 games, shooting over 24 shots a game in his last 3 out of 4. He's really been involved. The assist rate also great. Are you playing Trey Young at a volume with the field? Are you going a different way at all?
I'll be close to the field. I just don't have enough point guard ownership left. My problem is that I gotta change the ticker here. There we go. With having essentially one of my 2 spots filled with Dennis Smith every time and a lot of other ownership going to Tyus Jones, I just sort of run out of ownership to give to everybody else. So I am getting to Trey Young. It'll be close to the field on FanDuel, and that's just going to have to be good enough for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. On DK, I did make it a priority to get to Trey. I just don't, it's a really nice spot here going against Golden State. And if there is somehow a way that they pulled away from Golden State, only a 6-point spread favoring Atlanta at home. So it does seem like it should be a competitive game, but even if they do pull away, hard to imagine Trey not being the big initiator there. 44% assist rate on the year, usage over 35%. So everything's running through him. Really hard for me to see how Trey fails. And His ownership has come up enough where I wouldn't hate him in cash either. I know Giannis would probably be the more logical play, but would you be willing to go to Trey in cash?
If we're talking about FanDuel, I would guess that that's almost impossible. I can't imagine playing Trey Young in cash on FanDuel.
Good point.
On
DK
DraftKings, I mean, I doubt it, but I don't think that he's like not viable. I'm a little lower on Trey Young today than some of the rest of the industry, so there is that piece. Like, I would rather have Embiid than Trey Young at that same price tag. So I don't know how it would shake out. I'm guessing that I wouldn't have him, but I don't think it's as crazy as getting to him on FanDuel. He's still a good play on FanDuel too. It just so happens that Tyus Jones and Dennis Smith are on a different level on a point per dollar basis.
Okay. No, that seems fair. I think on DK, to me, Trey, I would say is fair. I would think he's fairly safe in terms of having a decent floor and being able to get it done. That's my gut instinct, though. Certainly some ways that can go differently, but at almost 30% ownership, I think people, and this value that's now opened up, I think people will be getting on Trey a little bit more.
He's at 30% ownership?
Yeah, in that last most recent run, like 27.
I didn't update DraftKings on my last update, so I still had him at 14. If he's projecting a little bit higher there, then yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, if he's on the way up, and again, the value is going to open him up a little bit more. So I think he's getting a little more cashy as the day goes on.
Yeah, I was looking at the bad data.
Let's finish up the Hawks side because I think some of the guys here are relevant, maybe less so depending on your sites. But Jabari Parker, to me, on DK, still looks like he's in a pretty good spot. Down a couple games in a row for him, but the usage is there. He's got the second highest usage on the team. I just think this spot would be one. If you're getting usage, you should be able to score against Golden State. Any issues for you, Jabari Parker? Or are you off him? Are you on him? Where are you feeling about him?
Basically neutral to the field. I have 33%. That's what I got on my last crunch, and I just updated that now. So I'm putting my dummies in now, and then getting a Jonas Valanciunas is out crunch together in the interim. But yeah, I have no issues going to Jabari. He and Trey Young, and like to a slightly lesser extent, DeAndre Bembry are the only guys that I'm looking at from Atlanta.
Yeah, and Bembry is starting. So unfortunately, he did it again to us, by the way. Bembry on Friday, he came off the bench and had a big day again after we'd been like, I don't see why you'd play Bembry today. He keeps doing it. Every time he comes up on the show, he keeps doing it. So DeAndre Bembry has been mentioned on the show. And you are playing some of him today. Have you learned your lesson from us continually going, don't play DeAndre Bembry, and then DeAndre Bembry goes for 40 fantasy points?
I have a small amount of him today. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, I think though this spot, like just him coming off the bench, I think would always give me pause. But if he's going to start, I think, especially against Golden State, where there's going to be some rebounds to go around, going to be some turnovers too. I think that's the time where I don't mind playing Bembry, but he's not enough of a value on DK where I'd feel like I need to get there necessarily.
Fair.
How about the Golden State side for you? Because all these guys are looking in a pretty good spot here. No Draymond Green, no D'Angelo Russell, no Steph Curry. Kevon Looney expected back, but he's going to be playing 15 minutes tops, so he's not going to be taking much off the table for these guys. The big's still not really where I'm looking at, though, but got a lot of Burks, got a lot of Bauman, got a lot of Eric Pascal. Pascal, have we shaken out what we're mispronouncing names? Have we chosen an Eric Pascal name?
I've never looked because I won't need to know it after this.
Okay. Which of these guys are you playing the most? And I guess if you wanted to rank them, which would you say would be the priorities you'd want to get to the most?
Yeah, so Burks is the guy that I'm getting to the most. It's not even really all that close for me right now. That's FanDuel, by the way. If I'm ranking them on FanDuel, it's Burks. We might have just lost the stream.
Looks okay on YouTube.
We got back at the last second. We did drop some frames.
Oh no.
There's like a 10 to 15 second window where we can get back on without losing the link. We got back on.
Okay, good.
We're good. We're all gravy.
So I think I'm with you on that. So Burks would be my priority. I'm a little more willing to get away from Bauman just because he has less usage. Pascal and Burks have been the highest usage guys in games without Draymond, without D'Angelo Russell, without Curry. So those guys to me feel a little bit safer. Bauman's been getting there. He's the best assist guy when Draymond's off the floor and Curry are off the floor and Russell too, obviously. But besides that, I don't know. I like Bauman still. I'm playing him. I'm actually I think above the field on him right now. But if I had to choose, I would just go to Burks. I feel like Burks' usage is safer. When he has bad games, it's because he shoots 3 for 15, not because he's bad. And Atlanta's defense actually worse than Golden State's on the year, which is kind of a surprise. 112.4 defensive efficiency rating for Atlanta compared to 111.1 for Golden State. So should be some scoring to go around, one would think.
You would think.
Are you in? Chris Randone in the chat, who'll be on tomorrow with Fast Eddie Fear. But he's saying, Mari Spellman revenge game. If now that we know that Kevon Looney's not going to be getting a ton of minutes, you're playing just 15. Do you have any Omari Spellman today at all?
No, 0. He should not be in anyone's player pool.
Okay. He's had the tournament upside recently. I think on a projection basis, it's hard to get there. But especially with Looney in there taking some minutes away too. But I think to me, the bigs just all don't look great now that Looney's taking another 15 minutes off the table. I don't see how Spellman or Chris or Cauley Stein get there really when they're all chopping even more.
Yeah.
We got a couple super chats in here, which I missed the first one, so that's my bad. For TJ Doms, in a change-up lineup, I can roll either Levine, Brogdon, or Booker on DK. It'll literally come down to who has the most fantasy points out of those three. So if you had to choose raw points, Levine, Brogdon, or Booker, which of those three? I know you had a Booker take, so if you want to lead into
for me, it's Booker, and I'm on an island with that one.
Yeah, I'd be reluctant with Rubio in there to go back to Booker because I do think they take enough away. I would go Brogdon. He does project the best. There's some blowout risk though, but I think I would go Brogdon.
Oh.
I don't feel great about that. Do you want to give your Booker take? Because I know that was one you dug your heels on a little bit with the strategy show.
Yeah, it's not even so much that. I think he's going over-owned or under-owned by a pretty dramatic margin. We spend a lot of time comparing him to Devin Booker of last year and like how that shakes out. But in all actuality, that shit just doesn't matter right now. It doesn't matter how he played last year without Ricky Rubio. The only thing that matters to me is that he's a fantasy point per minute guy. He's the best player on Phoenix. I've got him projected for 36 minutes, and he's essentially unowned at 8,200 on DraftKings. I don't think that there's anybody out there that would be shocked that the best player in this entire game has the biggest fantasy day against a defense that ranks 28th in fantasy points per possession allowed. The Suns have a 114.25 implied total. That's a big number for this slate. And Devin Booker is going to have the ability to do everything that he wants to do in this game today. And if that's the case, why not get to him at minimal ownership? I assume that his ownership hasn't climbed on DraftKings.
I don't believe so. I'll double check, but no, there's really no reason why it would climb, I don't think. But let's see. No, he's still at 16, which is actually a little higher than I would think.
Okay, so he was at 7 before. That's higher than I would have anticipated, but I understand that we're getting more value now, so it's starting to open up. That doesn't change the way that I feel about Booker. He's still a better raw point projected guy for me personally, but I'm just not worried about him not being the guy that he used to be because I'm just worried about what he's doing this year. And a point per minute at 36 minutes and being, again, in that sort of matchup, I'll roll the dice on low-ish ownership.
Also, Cameron Johnson is available to play, so they have run lineups with Oubre and Saric as the center, sort of, with Johnson in there. So that's one way that Frank could see less minutes, but Cam Johnson is in case somebody out there is waiting for that. But
by the way, right now I'm running a dummy crunch with Joe Val out and getting more Bruno Caboclo than I was getting Dennis Smith.
How does that make you feel? 100% Bruno Caboclo?
Kinda. It's going to be 90% of both.
Man,
all right. FanDuel. He's a crappy small forward on FanDuel. Like, hard.
Bruno's not a bad play today. I have enough Bruno.
He's a bad play if Jonas Valanciunas plays.
Yes. Okay. That's a fair point. That is one thing to keep in mind. By the way, the Jonas news, the Jonas Valanciunas news is out, and I think, or not out yet, rather. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But for now, Bruno Caboclo looks good. That's going to change wildly if Jonas is in, and Jonas would probably be, to quote the Fast Eddie Fear quote, would be a bit of a slam dunk type play if he's in, because it's still a tough matchup, but he's going to be so owned that we don't know Jonas' status for a half hour before lock.
Look, I think that Dennis Smith is a better play, but because of the position, it's easier to get to more Bruno on FanDuel. Yeah. On DraftKings, you just play the hell out of both of them.
Morgan Smith asking a question in the premium Slack. Would you still play Pascal if he isn't starting?
Yeah. No change for me.
There's just too much usage to go around there and you would think, I would think he would still be in the closing group. I don't know. I don't see how he wouldn't start either. Like I guess you could put Looney in, but Looney and Cauley-Stein together, that seems like an odd pairing.
They're not going to play a single second on the floor together.
Yeah, so why would Pascal not start them?
Oh, I have no idea. Look, they've got 9 guys. They're all going to play a shit ton.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Morgan also asking, anybody like Barnes? I actually do have a little bit of Harrison Barnes. What do you make of Sacramento, by the way? Because they've been playing these guys really big minutes recently for the core guys, and I don't know what to read about that. It was to the point where they all had decent days against Denver, and Denver a much less hospitable matchup than this one at home versus Chicago.
I don't get the sense that I had a ton of Sacramento guys. Let me just double check. Neutral to the field on Bogdan. A decent amount of Buddy Hield, actually. That's decent amount of Rashawn Holmes. Love the Kings, man. Love them.
You're an agnostic. You just look at the data, let it do its work. But no, I think the Kings are in a decent spot here. And it just, I think Barnes played 45 minutes last game, if I'm remembering correctly. Hield played over 40 in his last 3, and he shot like 25 plus times in his last 3, something like that. Yeah, he played.
Looney and Willie Cauley-Stein are starting. Is that a real statement? That's what chat's saying right now. That can't be real, can it?
I don't think that's come out yet, has it? Let's see. Jazz lineup, Sixers lineup. Furkan Korkmaz is starting for Josh Richardson again.
The only reason it makes any sense is that they're going to play Kevon Looney 4 minutes at the beginning of each quarter for 4 straight quarters.
Oh, yeah. Schmanessy Schmabs did, in fact, say that Looney will start alongside Cauley-Stein. Will play in short bursts Monday.
That's fascinating. If you're ever looking for a sign as to how much Steve Kerr cares about this season, here's one of them, because those 2 guys should not be playing together. But this is the easiest way for them to manage Kevon Looney's minutes. So he's going to play 4-minute stretches. Okay.
Yeah. So they haven't officially put out the starting lineup yet, but I think that was news from a Kerr interview is what it looks like. So that's why.
Like that. Anytime you see anybody on a minutes limit like that, you could see weird rotations, because the easiest way to manage a person's minutes is to control when they enter the game to start. And no matter what, you're starting fresh at the beginning of every quarter. So you know for a fact he's getting in and not skipping a run if like the ball doesn't go out of bounds for 3 possessions.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Still going to be, again, like it doesn't change anything with Pascal. Still looks like a solid play, and he could get even more usage off that second unit. I think just not having to deal with both Burks and Bowman out there, I think could be something, but I don't know. That's strange situation there. I don't get why you do that. All right, let's see. What games have we not hit on? So Sacramento, I guess to close the loop on Sacramento, I do think Barnes is worth some exposure. I do think Hield's worth some exposure. Hield's certainly the highest usage guy, has a pretty steady role. You'd think Bogdan's getting closer to health. I think that's fine. You mentioned Holmes, though. I do think Holmes is kind of sneaky today. Under 20% owned on DK. It's come up a little bit. I think he was under 10 before. But Chicago pretty bad versus centers and giving up a lot of rebounds, too. It seems like that's kind of Holmes' sweet spot. And he almost had 40 minutes in that last game as well. Rashawn Holmes playing almost 40 minutes against Chicago. I don't know that he would, but that's certainly a spot where you can do some damage against the really weak interior.
I have 33% on Holmes right now.
I like that. Yeah, Holmes to me is a guy who I think is really, he's priced awkwardly enough on DK2 where I don't think people will land there a bunch. Chicago side, we talked about Zach LaVine a little bit, but are you getting any Bulls?
Not that I'm aware of. Very minimal amounts of LaVine. And nobody else? Yeah, nobody else. So I mean, 4 lineups of Wendell Carter Jr., but I don't think that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Just a sprinkling at best. We should talk about this one game just because it is on the slate, and there's probably some leverage in going to it just because nobody's going to be there. If it somehow breaks in a way, that's really weird, but 209 combined total for Utah at Philadelphia. 2 teams have been really good defensively. Also, Utah playing at not the best pace. Philadelphia either, not really playing at the fastest pace in the world either. I don't know. I don't know if any of these guys are going to jump out to you, but are any of these guys jumping out to you at all from Philadelphia or Utah?
Just Embiid. I've got a lot of Embiid. By the way, Jonas Valanciunas, game time decision today.
Oh, come on. That is not helpful at all.
No, not so much. Not so much.
Does that change how you're playing anything on FanDuel?
No, I'm going to play a bunch of Jonas Valanciunas and hope for the best.
And a bunch of Caboclo too, though.
Zero Bruno Caboclo.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't get the sense that I'm going to have any Bruno.
Site not working, guys, in the YouTube chat. Because of the Cyber Monday deal, apparently too many people have come on right now. So if you guys keep refreshing and stuff, it's going to make it worse. I don't know how, if we as a team in the community can stop refreshing, but there are people on the back end are doing as much as they can. Our tech team, unfortunately, the site is growing at a scale that perhaps was not accounted for and prepared for. But we appreciate you guys coming, but it'll be good to go as soon as we can. Let's see. We didn't talk much about Charlotte. So Charlotte is a team too where people are going to be getting some of these guys. Devonte Graham, Adam talked about being one of the plays that he liked a lot more on the deeper dive. He does come up quite a bit with Osmos projections as well. What are you doing with Charlotte? Are you getting any of these guys a good amount? Because Graham to me looks like a pretty solid play, especially now that I'm not going to be on Rubio as much because of no bans.
I don't really have like too much interest in the Charlotte side. I don't have any Terry Rozier. I don't have any real amounts of Devonte Graham, no Miles Bridges, very little PJ Washington, just not on this game, or at least not on the Charlotte side.
Okay. I think there's some value on the Charlotte side. I mean, it's not a great matchup against Phoenix, who has been okay defensively, and it's, I guess technically a pace up for them, but I think Graham's just solid every day. And Rozier, too, is actually kind of rounded into form. Bridges also, I think, has really shown that he does have a decent floor with the ability to hit upside. And PJ Washington's also played over 33 minutes in his last couple games. That could certainly, the chair can be pulled out for him under any moment, under him at any moment. But I think these guys are in pretty solid spots. So I got a good amount of Graham, less Rozier, less Bridges, but they all look playable to me. And I think this game overall seems like it could have potential to do more. You talked about Booker, like I think a game stack here, not something we advocate for necessarily, but on a shortish slate, I think a game stack could have potential. Let's see. Anything else you're getting that's weird so far? We got 20 minutes left. People in the chat. See if I lost the ownership projections page, guys. So unfortunately, I can't give it to you right now. I only have it on my sheet itself. So anybody else you're getting on the slate that we haven't talked about yet that you feel like the people should have some of?
I have a lot of RJ Barrett on FanDuel.
Why?
Why? Who else is going to handle the ball? I think he's the real benefactor to the lack of anybody doing anything today. He is at 7% ownership. I don't get the sense that he's not going to be playing, decent minutes today, given the scenario. So Alex's projection, not terribly shocking on him either. So I've got my eye on RJ Barrett for right now.
I mean, Kadeem Allen can certainly handle the ball. I don't know if you heard of that guy.
I did.
he's a pretty
don't
great
play
guy.
Kadeem Allen, guys. Seriously, don't.
I would still give yourself 1% Kadeem Allen. I just, we know how this goes with chalk NBA plays sometimes.
That does not mean I should play Kadeem Allen.
All right. Well, I would play, again, very little Kadeem Allen, but I would still play some because I feel more comfortable that way. For my sanity, I played some Kadeem Allen. Looking at the chat, Premium Slack asking some questions in here. Would you feel more comfortable being overweight on Giannis or Trey Young relative to ownership on FanDuel?
Giannis or Trey Young? I have like 2x the field of Giannis and half the field of Trey Young, so Trey Young. Or Giannis, rather. Jesus, moron.
There's never a bad time to be over on Giannis. And, I think the game for as much pause it may give me that he played only 20 minutes, he did have a 51% usage rate in that last game. And that was on the back end of a back-to-back. So hard to feel bad about Giannis, but the margins could be getting a little tighter with him. It's just like, he still has a floor. He's always going to have a decent floor. I think the ceiling is really the bigger question here. And like, what would you say are the chances that Trey outscores Giannis today?
Shit, did I delete that?
I thought you had like a tool for it. I thought you had a fun little.
I used to. I don't have it in here right now, but I can give you sort of an eyeball. 47. I don't know. Low. I don't know. 30%.
Okay.
But maybe less than that.
Okay.
Probably less. Probably less than that. Probably like 20%.
Okay. That's fair. Ella Morgan, why play Barrett but play some Kadeem? Jesus, they're very different price points. Ella, learn DFS maybe before you comment Jesus on things. That'd be the reason why. One is a direct price point pivot. The other is $4,000 more. So almost. So that's the reasons why. Snarky comments today. Too much. Black. It's Cyber Monday, guys. We're supposed to be overjoyed.
Yeah, you should be cybering each other.
It's true. Everybody should be asking ASL in the chat as we speak. That's always the move.
Yes, all 3,109 of you.
Speaking of, I guess not speaking of anything. Speaking of cybering, people are asking how many minutes do you think Bruno would have if Jonas Valanciunas were in? What do you, Bruno? I'm assuming the minutes load is just not enough. But what would you say that he plays if Jonas is in?
I had him in for 18. I'm gonna run another crunch by boosting him up a little bit. Now that I know that I'm not getting that news before lock, I'm gonna run one so that I have some lineups with Bruno in with Joe Val, but never in the same lineup.
Yeah, which seems about right. It's just hard to expect Bruno to get there without getting that extra run that Jonas not being in would leave behind. But it's got to figure out the way you want to play that with your appetite for risk and all that.
Exactly.
Anyway, Middleton takes away from Giannis. Sean Kaiser is asking in the YouTube chat. I mean, he can take some away on a per minute basis. It's just, does he take away enough for him to hit the ceiling relative to his price or hit where he needs to hit relative to his price? So he takes away, like he definitely does take away. It's just how much is going to be up to the game and the situation.
Middleton starting shouldn't take you from like, I like Giannis to I don't like Giannis.
No. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it should take you from like, okay, like for tournaments, if you're playing 150, I think it could make you shave 10% off Giannis and go elsewhere. But I don't know.
Groups, create group.
Uptown G also asking, anybody in cash, where would you be on cash rather for either of Jonas or Bruno? I would say no, because we don't know the status.
No, you don't play either of those guys in a cash game. You can swap to Bruno if you would like. Like, if you think you can get Joe Val... No, there's no reason to have Joe Val in a cash lineup, but be prepared to swap to Bruno if you can on DraftKings.
Yeah, right. I think if we know Jonas is out, then he becomes a good play, but like going straight from Jonas down to Bruno would be a bad situation. You'd be leaving so much money on the table, which would not be great for cash.
I mean, you should think. No, I mean, you should be able to make more swaps for that particular game.
I guess on DK. Yeah, I don't know. It depends. I just would build your lineup then where you have some other roster position X flexibility, but we may not know before lock.
Yeah, you shouldn't be playing Jonas Valanciunas in cash regardless.
Yes, that seems like a fair take. And if Jonas gets ruled out, I think Bruno in cash appealing at minimum price, but he's still not the cashiest play in the world. I don't think. Bruno Caboclo.
If Jonas Valanciunas is out, Bruno Caboclo is a lock cash play. He'll be owned in 70%, 80%, 90% of cash games. He's the flat minimum. The flat on DraftKings.
Okay. All right. I got you now. I got you. All right. Looking at the YouTube chat. Nothing good. If you guys have any questions, get them in now because I'm actually looking for questions. Thoughts on Turner on FanDuel if there's no JVal? Brian Peel is asking in the premium Slack.
I don't think it matters for Miles Turner at all. So it doesn't change anything for me.
I would agree with that. I don't think that does much of anything. I mean, Turner might see easier defense without Jonas, but that's really not a play that I don't think is affected by that outcome. Jaren Jackson or Holmes on FanDuel, which I think you have a very easy lean here. Yeah, got to be Holmes. All right, no good questions right now. Oh, the Greg SJ is one of our regulars who I like, so I'll answer this question. White, Dunn, Joseph, or Bembry? If you were playing all those cheap guys, no sight given, which of those four would you think is the most appealing of that quadrant?
White, Dunn, Joseph, or Bembry?
Yeah.
Bembry.
Okay. Fast Eddie Fear in the chat. What products do you two use to groom your facial hair? Because you were looking fantastic. Thanks, Eddie. That's always rely on Eddie for niceties. Appreciate you, buddy. Is Chris Dunn good in cash? That's an interesting question. Would you play Chris Dunn in cash?
No.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen the Jim Boylan rotations and how they can change on a whim, as evidenced by poor Shaq Harrison going from potentially starting to playing no minutes. So I would not feel safe with that.
Unless you're playing like just Bulls game showdown cash, at which point then that's a viable option, I guess. But no, you should not be playing Chris Dunn in cash today. Guys, come on.
Ryan in the premium Slack asking, who would you rather spend up on, or is the slate more about the mid-range guys and Dennis Smith Jr.?
Who would I rather spend up on?
On DK, I'm spending more for Trey Young, or more on Trey Young.
Giannis for me on FanDuel.
How much Sabonis is too much on FanDuel?
I don't know, 25%.
Okay. Any thoughts on Horford on DK? I think he projects as an okay value, but I don't see it. I find a hard time getting there in this spot with the amount of guys we have on the slate.
He's a guy in a sea of guys today. A lot of faceless people in the mid tier on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, I think Osmo barely has him as a 5x value on DraftKings. My personal projections have him a little bit less than that, so I would not be crazy about Al Horford in the spot. It's just a tough game environment, but one of those good real life games, kind of a tough fantasy game. How much Embiid do you have? Dante asks.
Like 30 and change, I think I had on the last run. Something like that. 34.
Brian Peel asking to rank Chris Middleton, Malcolm Brogdon. Or actually, no, wait. He says Bogdan, but it's spelled with an O. So I'm going to assume that's Bogdan and Barrett for FanDuel GPP. So Middleton, Bogdan, and Barrett.
Middleton is not a part of any of that conversation. So he isn't just last. He's not an answer. I would rather have... I'm getting to more RJ Barrett than Bogdanovich. Alex's projections would have that the opposite direction. I think that they're both relatively close. Very minimal ownership coming into RJ Barrett, though.
Stack, DK specific, do you feel like you just project Joe Val and then pivot with news? I think that'd be the logical approach. It's not the one I'm doing because I host a show during the last hour where we get news, but I think that's the way that you should probably be doing it. But
if you're playing on DraftKings, you should be projecting Jonas Valanciunas to be in the game as if he's playing normal run, and then fix it later.
Yeah. What is the time of the games tonight? Because that
game starts at 8.
Okay, so that's why I didn't do it. I didn't do that because then I can't really pivot around enough Golden State and Atlanta. So that was why I didn't do that. I just said I'll play Bruno, and if I can't get there, I'll pivot some of my Sacramento lineups and figure it out. But I'm just going to eat some Bruno if he doesn't, if Jonas is in.
Delicious Bruno.
He is Greek, so I think, right? No, is he Greek? He's Brazilian. Brazilian also good. So either way, two very different things, by the way. How popular is a double punt on FanDuel point guard going to be today, particularly Tyus Jones and Dennis Smith Jr.?
Not as popular as it should be.
All right.
Not as popular as it'll be for me.
Let's see. Can you have Kaminsky and Sarge with Baines out? I would think you can.
Yeah, I don't see any issues there.
Why is it always the ones that end up spamming the question that I take from you two?
I don't know. You're bad at answering this.
I know. It's just like I see the first one. I'm like, oh, cool. That's a good question. And then it's like 10 more times.
And now I'm going to ban him.
Yeah. Like, well, you got your one question answered. So sorry, Jaden Labasso, but don't spam the freaking channel. It's the one thing we ask. Don't spam the freaking channel. Trey Norman Spags, you look Greek. I am part Greek. Thanks for that. Felt like a disparaging remark, but you want to answer this question? Ryan Herrera asking, what's a good 4 cornerstones for today?
You would know, man. You're the 4 cornerstones video guy.
That's the 4 corners are a different video series, which do not just feature cornerstone plays, but I built most of my lineups today on DraftKings around Trey Young and the Golden State chalk. So
Dennis Smith Jr., Tyus Jones, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid on FanDuel for me.
Oh yeah, so Dennis Smith too, what I think would be in that mix as well. So I would say Kai Bauman, Alec Burks, Dennis Smith, and Trey Young are my 4 cornerstones of the day. Put a cornerstone logo up on the screen, please. How How many players in your player pool tonight? I don't change my player pools. You don't change yours either, right?
I do for sure.
Oh, okay.
I have 42 people showing up in crunches. I have 46 actual people available to be crunched.
Brian Peel asking top 3 center plays for FanDuel GPP. What would you think of that?
I don't even know if there are 3. Joel Embiid, Jonas Valanciunas, Robin Lopez.
People giving out advice. People right now are giving out advice that's in the premium select that's crashing the site more. If you keep refreshing the site, you might get in, but you're probably making it worse for everybody involved. But, hey, I do whatever you need to, guys. I got 5 minutes left to lock, so make it work. Is Pascal still viable with Looney in? We talked about this earlier, but Ben Thompson in the premium Slack is asking, what's your final verdict on is Pascal still viable with Looney in?
Yeah, 100%. I'll still have him a bunch.
That I would agree.
I am walking him back mildly just because I had like 3x the field. I still like him off the bench. I still expect him to play 30 minutes. I don't need to have him in 35% of my lineups.
Ryan Stubbs saying no Vince Carter mentions. Here's a Vince Carter mention. I would not play Vince Carter.
Why would we mention Vince Carter?
Vince Carter was projected for 16 minutes in our most recent run.
Did you get in a hot tub time machine earlier today?
It's Vince Carter. I don't think going to have a throwback game today, but if he does, then good job by you, Ryan. Play all the Vince Carter you want.
Exactly.
Alex Len, anybody you're landing on? Damian Jones in a revenge game against Golden State?
No. No and no.
All right.
I am running with this now. That seems perfect. I've got 4 minutes. Lineups are ready. I've got wild exposures, but I'm super cool with it.
What do you want to give them your final exposures?
I will as soon as I paste them in. So give me another minute and then we can go over everything I've got. I've got some extremes.
Okay. All right. Relax about Alex Len. Jesus Christ.
Why is anyone asking about Alex Len? Or any...
No, it's just one guy declaring that he loves Alex Len over and over again and asking about Len and declaring it. I'll time you out, but Jesus, just stop spamming the chat.
39. Really? 39? Okay.
No, still no J Val news, by the way. So you guys are flying blind with that.
Oh yeah, he's a game time decision. We're not going to know until 7:55, which is aggravating as shit. But I'm playing a bunch of him on draft or on FanDuel and hoping for the best. If I'm right, I'm going to be very happy that I'm right.
That seems fair.
And every lineup that I made that I have Bruno in, I won't have Joval in. So
yeah, it makes sense. Did you get a final breakdown?
I'll let you know once I click this. I just clicked upload, but I need to make sure that it's uploading first. Too important today. Jesus. All right. I have final exposures. Officially show it on the screen, FanDuel. Show me the lineups. Okay, cool. All right, final exposures. Here we go. This is FanDuel, guys. Just FanDuel for today. Trey Young, 27, so a bit under the field. Very little Malcolm Brogdon, who was also chalky. Relatively neutral to Tyus Jones, 94.7%. Dennis Smith. Shooting guard, relatively innocuous today. Nobody really stands out. I've got 27% Devin Booker, 34% Buddy Hield, 35% RJ Barrett, 30% Dylan Brooks, 30% DeAndre Bembry. That's pretty much all that matters there. Fading Devonte Graham. 71% Giannis, 32% Kelly Oubre, 52% Alec Burks. That is all small forward. 13% Bruno, fingers crossed, I guess. Power forward, pretty similar to shooting guard. 20% Sabonis, 30% Jabari, 30% Rashawn Holmes, 57% Frank Kaminsky, 37% Embiid, 28% Joval, 14% Robin Lopez. Fingers crossed, Joval. Fingers crossed.
I'm going to benefit much more if Joval's out. So I'm team no Joval and hope my Bruno lineups just magically take flight. But knowing my luck, it'll probably be... Actually, no, I had a pretty good day in NFL yesterday, so I'm hot right now. FanDuel GPP for Zaz Crib. Would you go Jabari and Miles Bridges or Holmes and Burks? That's very much Holmes and Burks for me.
Yep, Holmes and Burks. Not even close.
Would you play Dario or Frank on DK regardless of price? I would prefer Frank personally.
Run them off again. Dario or Frank?
Yep, regardless of price. Okay.
Dario.
Okay, I'd still prefer Frank, but I get why you'd go. Dario's getting backup center minutes too, so that's fine. But did he play for Charlotte? No.
Yeah, I mean, Dario Saric should be projected for more fantasy points and less ownership. So regardless of price, should just be Dario Saric by default.
Ryan Stubbs asking for NFL takes. I believe we have an NFL Live Before Lock show coming up in about 30 minutes.
We do.
So, is that Emac and Nolan today?
It is.
Yeah, Ryan Stubbs, you'll have all your answers there. You can also check out my showdown breakdown video for it. Killed last Monday, so that was fantastic. So I'm hoping to do it again today, but I don't know about that. But I would say play the Seattle pass game and put a receiver at the captain would be what I'm doing a lot. If J-Val is out, then would you go Bruno over Melton?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, like just 100%.
All right, now we are locked. Do you want to do a quick run of ownership here? Do you have time?
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, I don't have anywhere to be.
All right, let's do one. Why not? Do the DK Cyber Monday special, which was $8, but you get 3 times the crowns. What a deal. Triple the crowns, Josh.
Gotta love triple crowns.
I like when they go I like when they had the previous years. It'd be like Black Friday. Here's a $1 tournament with like $1 million prize. They're like, that's fun. Like, I don't care about 3 times the crowns. They give me crowns for everything.
I would care about 3 times the crowns. That's a day you should play more.
I guess the crown rate isn't the best either.
And it's better when it's 3x.
The YSRP rate now, that's one you can buy. You can literally buy a home. You can buy a tiny house with YSRPs exclusively. All right, let's see. Should be up now. There we go. Cyber Monday special on DK. Pulling it up now. We'll see. Oh, one guy is 40. Oh boy, people got to Frank. Apparently, people got to Frank. Top owned play out of these early games. Do you want to guess who it is?
Sounds like it's Frank.
You are correct. Your hunch was correct. 43% for Frank. Uncle Chubbs would be under that, I presume.
I'd probably be right around there.
Okay, I'm at 50%, Frank, and I feel okay about that.
I don't have a problem with it at all. 4,400, it's cheap.
2 positions too, dude. I like the flexibility. Devonte Graham, 24%. So I like that. I think that's fair. Rather, I don't like that because it's a little bit much. And if he plays well, I don't love it. But Devonte Graham at 24%. How does Uncle Chubbs feel?
I think he's a little over-owned, but I also think that he's like good. I don't have a problem with having that kind of amount. I just don't think that I would have had it. But it's not like he's some scrub.
Here's somebody who seems a little bit over-owned, and he did have some decent box score games against Rudy Gobert last year, but Joel Embiid, 19%. You have any feel about that?
I would have had way more.
Really?
He was my favorite pay-up option on DraftKings today.
Interesting. All right. I guess he's cheaper than Trey Young, so I could see going there, but I did not go there as much as the field. Dario at 18%. That seems like pretty nice leverage on Frank, so I would like that if I had him.
Where's his name at? Jesus.
Do you have the version from Basketball Reference with many unnecessary European characters?
No. What the hell is his price on DraftKings?
57 or something?
Yeah, I don't get the sense that I would have much, if anything, of Dario Saric. Probably none.
It's 5,900 on DK.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have had him.
I probably should have had more than I have, but I have less than the field on him. Devin Booker at 16%. The people all watching the strategy show, it seems.
Smart people.
And I'll just run through the rest of these. Ben Simmons, 10%. Tobias Harris, also 10%. Kelly Oubre, 9%. Al Horford, 8.2%. Miles Bridges, just under 7%. Ricky Rubio, over 6%, which I think is about right. Just play him when Baines is in. That's how I feel about Rubio now. Gobert at 6%. Kind of intriguing. Terry Rozier, 6%. That's fine. PJ Washington, 5%. Donovan Mitchell, 5%. Kind of interesting there. Didn't project well, but could be a guy who gets going in that spot. Bismack Biyombo still holding on to 2%. Bless his heart. Cody Zeller right behind him. Cameron Johnson, 1.3%. Did anybody play themselves?
Cameron Johnson at 1.3% is kind of interesting today.
Yeah. He could also, again, another guy who's a leverage on Frank and could be a way that they go differently. Aaron Baines. People played themselves a lot with Aaron Baines. 0.3% of the field played Aaron Baines today. So congratulations, all you fine people out there. I love the play, but you played yourselves. All right. Should I even plug the Cyber Monday thing now?
No, we're probably not unlocking that anytime soon.
Whoever was in the chat said we were unlocking it at like 7:01.
Yeah, we're not.
Okay, so we're not unlocking that anytime soon, guys. We'll update. Check the Twitter. Follow at @awesome_com. If you've been trying to get that deal, I'm sure we'll have some make good. I know the struggles are annoying sometimes, so we apologize for it. Really and truly, it's trying to do the best of the tech setup that we have, and that is a bit of a situation sometimes that can be not the best. But we appreciate all you guys for sticking with us and dealing with it. So please do hit that like button because we're trying. Josh and I are trying here as best we can, but we appreciate all of you for tuning in. And of course, we also appreciate Super Draft, and that is one site that is up and thriving right now. If you go to superdraft.io, use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for $20 free with any deposit of $100 or more. Let's go to superdraft.io right now and check out the multiplier tournaments in particular. Those ones you don't even have to know salaries. You just pick your guys, and it goes from there. So it's very simple. A lot of overlay in their tournaments too, so easy ways to build bankroll. Head over to superdraft.io right now and get your super cash, your $20 in super cash with that promo code AWESEMO. And Josh, anything you want to plug?
No, strategy show tomorrow morning. Myself and Adam. We've got how many games tomorrow? Ooh, we got a real Tuesday slate. 2, 4, 7 game slate tomorrow. Adam and I haven't really had that, so that's going to be pretty sweet. So Adam and I tomorrow in the morning, but EMAC and Nolan in 25 minutes talking NFL.
Yep, so tune in for those guys there. And check out my showdown breakdown video before that so you can get all the NFL information in one swoop. It's on the channel right now. It has a fun, professional graphic designed by our guy Jake, who does a great job for us. So watch that. But we appreciate you guys sticking with us. We'll see you guys again until tomorrow. Fast Eddie and Chris Randone. We'll see you guys here. So watch then. But have a good night, guys, and good luck.